Today, we are learning about the most brutal crime spree in Belgium's history. The location is the city of Belgium, and the time is November 9, 1985, at 7:32 p.m. We exited the supermarket with my parents and my sister, trying to load the purchased items into our car. It was our last moment together. "Don't shoot," my father suddenly shouted, and I heard a loud bang, like fireworks. Someone shot at us. My sister and father fell to the ground. "Run, David, run back to the store!" I screamed. My mother and I heard screams of pain from inside, and I hid behind the comic book shelves. A dark-faced figure stood in front of me, and I looked straight into the worn barrel of his gun. He grinned terrifyingly and pulled the trigger. I woke up in the hospital days later. A bullet had hit my hip. I spent a year in the hospital, and to this day, I feel the pain where the shot hit. My grandparents raised me. The Unresolved gang wiped out my entire family that night. This horrifying account comes from David van der Steen, who, at just 9 years old, lost his family in a supermarket robbery. A raging gang terrorized them. In 1982, in the Walloon Brabant province of Belgium, a brutal serial killer gang appeared, initially consisting of 2, later 3 members, who killed 28 people between 1982 and 1985. They killed men, women, and children without discrimination or mercy. What's most frightening is that to this day, the identity of these ruthless killers remains unknown. The Belgian authorities named them the Unresolved gang, the Brabant Mad Shooters, and the Brabant Killers. They earned these names because they committed their crimes mostly in Belgium, particularly in the Brabant province. Let's start from the beginning. When did the mass murders begin? Who were they, and why were they never caught? We know nothing about the formation of the Unresolved gang, but it is certain that their activities began in 1982. While some sources suggest their involvement in a December 1984 break-in, the firearms stolen during that incident were later found in a garage owned by a Belgian gendarme named Bohus. The incident on March 13, 1982, took place at the Dynamo store in Belgium. 2 men stole a large rifle, and the culprits managed to escape. On May 10th of this year, armed with a weapon, they forcibly stole the owner's family car, an Austin Allegro. The car was abandoned by the perpetrators later that evening, and they stole another car from a dealership. According to the Allegro owner, the gangsters were intimidating but seemingly sophisticated individuals. In the next robbery, they used their weapons and numbered 3. On August 14th, in Mogouys, France, they robbed a grocery store while loading stolen groceries and wine into the trunk of their car. 2 police officers appeared, leading to a shootout in which both officers were seriously injured. The culprits escaped, and on September 30th, they killed in a Belgian city during a robbery at a gun dealer, seizing 15 firearms, including machine guns. They killed a police officer on the spot and seriously injured 2 others. Before Christmas, on December 23rd, they broke into a restaurant in Bersolb. They stole only a few bottles of wine and packages of coffee, brutally tortured the caretaker, and then shot him dead. Thus, the year 1982 passed in Belgium, and no one knew who they were, what they wanted, and why they committed these crimes. Surely, it wasn't for the significant loot, since they mainly took practically worthless items with them. The crime scenes began to involve the trio from the 3rd robbery onwards. Phantom images of them were created, and they even received nicknames. One of them was a tall man who led the raids, presumably playing the role of the leader in the gang. The media named him the Giant. Another member received the nickname the Killer because he was the most brutal and committed the most murders. The 3rd member was given the ugly nickname the Old Man. He was a middle-aged man who mostly served as a driver in the crimes. The year 1983 was already much bloodier. On January 9th, the gang abducted a taxi driver and executed him. On the 28th, they stole a Peugeot, and on February 11th, they robbed a supermarket in Rixensart, injuring several people in the shooting. On the 22nd, during the robbery on February 11th, their used car was stolen back from a commercial garage, but the police found the car abandoned on the roadside that same day. On February 25th, another armed robbery was carried out, and they stole barely $15,000 in euro. On March 3rd, they robbed a Halle supermarket, taking $18,000 and fatally shooting one of the store employees. On May 7th, they targeted another supermarket, making off with $20,000. Strangely, they didn't harm anyone in this instance. On September 10th, they stole 7 bulletproof vests from a textile factory, killing a worker. On September 17th, they shot and killed a man and a woman at a gas station where they stole 20 kilograms of tea and coffee, along with 10 liters of cooking oil. They awaited the arriving police, killed one officer, and seriously injured another. They then fled, continuously firing at the pursuing police cars until they finally managed to shake off the patrols. In this year, they attacked 3 more places, killing 4 more people. In a December 1st robbery, they used a Volkswagen with a fake license plate and destroyed the surveillance camera footage. These shocking crimes made it clear that the 3 perpetrators were skilled with weapons and showed no signs of nervousness or tension. The most surprising moment came when the bloody series of murders and robberies abruptly ceased, leaving experts puzzled. The gang disappeared without a trace after the December robbery, and to this day, experts cannot determine the cause, leaving only speculation. This nearly 1.5-year hiatus highlighted that the motives for the robber murders were driven by purposes other than monetary gain. But then, what were these motives? Then came September 7, 1985, and the gang embarked on one of their bloodiest rampages. On this day, near a supermarket in Delhi, they took a child hostage. Then, in an Italian restaurant, they took 3 more patrons as human shields and instructed them to walk with them into the store. One guest attempted to escape. The killer immediately shot him, making off with $6,000. They kicked the people lying on the ground. The killer shot 1 more person outside in the parking lot, also killing a van driver and injuring a child. That same evening, they moved to another Delhi supermarket, about 20 kilometers from the first rampage. Here, they literally went berserk, shooting at anyone and anything that moved, leaving numerous wounded and 5 dead. They departed with $25,000. Panic and terror returned to the Belgians after a year and a half, as the terrifying gang reappeared more brutal than ever. People were afraid, many dared not step out onto the streets, and some criticized the police, finding it unbelievable that the entire organization couldn't capture 3 insane robber-murderers. The most shocking crimes occurred on November 9th. As the killers got out of the car, they immediately began firing at people in the parking lot and inside the store. According to surviving witnesses, the killers laughed while firing with incredible aggression. Within 3 minutes, 8 people lay dead, and numerous wounded individuals were scattered throughout the supermarket and the parking lot. This robbery, which turned out to be the last, had a significant positive aspect. A responding police patrol managed to hit one of the killers. According to investigations, this particular killer committed 23 out of the 28 murders. Some theories suggest that the killer may have died from the bullets that hit him after receiving fatal shots. The gang attempted to escape in a stolen Golf GT, and since the police couldn't apprehend them, several police cars gave up the chase after a few kilometers and turned back. This is a particularly strange moment, even at that time. Some young people allegedly saw the Golf and 2 men digging in a nearby forest during the night. Next to them lay the body of a hefty man. The youngsters were terrified, and it was much later before they dared to report it to the police. According to investigators, the giant and the old man buried the killer in the forest. Later, at the mentioned location in the forest, they found the burnt wreckage of the Golf, but the killer's body was never recovered. In short, this was the rampage of the Nijvel gang. After the November 1985 massacre, they vanished without a trace, leaving numerous victims and questions behind. The shocking spree of robberies and murders continues to be investigated to this day. Let's see what theories and speculations have emerged regarding these horrors. There are many questions. Who were they, and why did they do it? Why did they target negligible loot, and in some cases, why didn't they shoot, while at other times, why did they kill indiscriminately? Where did they disappear for a year and a half, and why did they return thirsting for blood, only to disappear again? After November 1985, some suspect that the 3 perpetrators surely had connections to the police, as, during the initial crimes, the giant often did not wear gloves, and the killer and the old man sometimes did not wear masks. The police never caught them during pursuits. They often gave up and withdrew. It was also observed that the gang members used weapons not typical for police practice. Moreover, the Brabant killers sometimes taunted the police, casually loading items into their cars as if they knew they wouldn't be caught. There was speculation that the gang consisted of members of the federal police, aiming to destabilize the state and introduce a far-right government. The chief prosecutor in Liege stated that, in his opinion, someone manipulated the investigation in the 1980s, but apart from vague allusions, he did not provide any further details. Another bizarre aspect is that Robert Rowland, who investigated the Brabant killers case in 2019, committed suicide. Given the professionalism in executing their attacks and their proficiency with weapons, some theorized that the perpetrators might be soldiers. Some even suggested the Belgian military's involvement. Supporters of this theory claimed that the Nijvel gang's task was to create chaos and panic in the country. However, there is no concrete explanation for why this would be necessary. Another theory involved a semi-military far-right organization established in 1989, collaborating with private militias formed in 1973. Militia members used similar firearms as the Brabant killers, and some were convicted for illegal militia activities and murder. The leader of the AVMP, Michelle Burchett, was arrested in 1985 for her involvement in the killings but was released 48 hours later. In 2018, she was accused by a former member of being the giant, but this accusation did not gain traction. Other theories implicated the mafia, suggesting that the killing spree was ordered to allow the mafia to continue illegal operations. During that time, news and police investigations were dominated by the shocking series of murders. In the 1980s, a conspiracy theory emerged, claiming that politicians, ministers, and even King Albert I were allegedly involved in orgies with underage children, and videotapes of these events existed. According to this theory, the Brabant killers eliminated those who knew about or witnessed the recordings. However, there is no evidence for this, and the Pink Ballet is considered a fabrication by a Belgian psychiatrist. Witnesses stated that the killers did not selectively target their victims, and the theory lacks concrete proof. In 1986, a canal was discovered with various items and weapons related to crimes. Another piece of potentially incriminating evidence was sent anonymously to the authorities in the form of a photo. The man in the photo, holding a semi-automatic combat shotgun manufactured by an Italian-French company, played a significant role in the Brabant killings. Could he be one of the gang members, and if so, which one? Each possibility fits a description of a man in his 40s or 50s, making him potentially the old man. However, he doesn't seem short, so he could also be the giant. Yet, his poker-faced cold expression, resembling the killer, kept the sender's identity hidden. In 2017, an astonishing revelation circulated in the global press. A man claimed that his deceased brother in 2015 was the infamous criminal known as the Giant. He asserted that the man confessed to his crimes on his deathbed and identified him as Christian Bangowski. In 1981, Bangowski served in a special forces unit in the police, but was dismissed after accidentally discharging his weapon during an operation. His expulsion deeply affected him, and he started drinking heavily. Physically, he resembled the Giant and matched one of the composite sketches. Bangowski loved firearms and even warned his family not to go near the supermarket before the attack. However, the investigation concluded that Bangowski was not the gang's leader. The investigation veered away from Bangowski, and it was determined that he was not the mastermind behind the criminal gang. Other suspects included well-known Belgian criminal Patrick Helms and the previously mentioned Madame Hoos, a gendarme convicted of 2 unrelated murders. However, there was never concrete evidence against them. In 2017, the police arrested a man named Jean-Marie, who initially confessed but later denied his involvement in the murders. According to his lawyer, the man suffered from mental illness. Who were these 3 lunatics? If they are still alive today, they would likely be elderly men, possibly in their 60s or 70s. As mentioned, the killer undoubtedly died in a firefight with the police in 1985. According to Belgian laws, the case would have been statute barred on November 10, 2015. However, this decision was met with outrage, and due to the exceptional severity of the crimes, the statute of limitations was extended until 2025. Police and military connections, mafia involvement, political affairs, chaos and confusion were created. What could have been the motivation behind these terrible murders, as money gain certainly was not the driving force? The Nijvel gang, the Brabant mad killers case, is perhaps one of the darkest and most perplexing mysteries for both Belgians and the world. What do you think could be the reality? One thing is certain, monsters live among us. What might have been the background of these murders? Share your thoughts in the comments.